LiSNTR production.
Hey, it's Helen Smith here with you. Welcome to the afternoon edition of The Briefing. Only 2 Australians have ever become the Formula One world champion, but 24-year-old Oscar Piastri might be in with a shot of becoming our third, winning 4 of the past 6 races, with the Miami Grand Prix being the most recent.
McLaren in Miami, Papaya and Piastri on top as Oscar Piastri wins the Miami Grand Prix and the championship leader does it in style.
So who is Oscar Piastri and how did he become one of the top F1 drivers in the world? That's coming up in our deep dive with Greg Rust, or Rusty. He's Australia's top motor racing journalist. But first, let's check the afternoon headlines. It's Friday, the 9th of May. Angus Taylor has officially announced he will run against Susan Lee to become the next leader of the Liberal Party. His announcement comes as further speculation grows on whether Senator Jacinta Nampijinpa-Price will run as his deputy after she quit the Nationals in favour of the Liberals. Meanwhile, Prime Minister Anthony Albanese copped a standing ovation in caucus today, with the PM giving a big shout out to the 57% of members who are women, saying it's the most diverse group he's ever seen in Parliament, but still telling his team it's now time to deliver.
We don't seek power for its own sake, not to decide who's in what part of the building. We seek power in order to deliver for the people who need Labor to be in government and to develop a better nation.
And the winner of Australia's most prestigious portrait prize, the Archibald, has gone to Julie Frager for her portrait Flagship Mother Multiverse of performance artist Justine Williams. Frager is just the 13th woman to win the Archibald Prize in its 104-year history, beating out 57 finalists and taking home $100,000 worth of prize money. Now it's time to get into our deep dive with host of LiSNR's Rusty's Garage, Greg Rust, on Australia's F1 Golden Boy and why the billion-dollar sport is continuing to grow in popularity.
Verstappen goes deep into the corner and concedes the lead of this race. Piastri, the World Championship leader, is now the new leader of the Miami Grand Prix.
Rusty, who is Oscar Piastri and could he be Australia's answer to our next F1 champ?
Helen, g'day. He's a 24-year-old from Melbourne. He would be the first to probably tell us in this conversation not to get too far ahead of us at the moment of ourselves, because we're only just 6 races through a 24-round season. But he is showing all the right ingredients, all the right qualities in and out of the car. And it's the way that people like Max Verstappen, whose driving talent is incredibly special, the way he reacts to Oscar on track, the kind of respect that Oscar has commanded from him. He has this ice-cool-like driving style. And every year since he's graduated to Formula One, he's, I think, privately set himself some goals. He's achieved those goals. And in this 3rd season with the McLaren team, I mean, what are we now? He's won 6 races in his career and just absolutely flying.
Yeah, and we'll get into some of that on-track competition a bit later. But for anyone who might not watch or understand Formula One, can you break it down for me? You mentioned there's how many races we've got. So how many races, how many teams are there? And of course, how much money is invested in this sport?
Teams are worth billions of dollars now. It is the premier form of circuit racing, of 4-wheel motorsport, if you like. MotoGP is the 2-wheel version. It crisscrosses the globe, 24 races over the year. It has, courtesy of the Netflix series Drive to Survive in recent years, become absolutely box office. It became really mainstream in the 70s, I suppose you could say. It's been going a lot longer than that. This is its 75th year, Formula One. And they were enormously brave races, and safety was very minimal compared to now in the early days of the sport. What we have now is a very fast, very safe, very glamorous sport. And the younger fans are as addicted to what happens off track as the purists like myself that have been around it for years as far as what happens on track. So 10 of the best teams in the world, only 20 slots for drivers from all over the globe. So to get in, to be on the grid is incredibly difficult. To stay there, then let alone to do what Oscar's doing, to win races and to potentially be in with a shot of winning a championship. They are huge, huge things.
Yeah, and the popularity of the sport, which you mentioned there, Drive to Survive, was massive a few years ago when it jumped onto our screens and Netflix. We've been seeing record numbers of crowds going to our Australian Grand Prix. What do you think is behind that?
You were there this year, weren't you? Nearly 500,000 across the 4 days, and we've never seen numbers like it, and I think it'll be even bigger next year. This is in part due to the Drive to Survive effect. So I have teenage daughters. Both of them love the sport, but they digest the sport, Helen, differently to the way I would. I go looking to trusted websites for race results, for information about what's happening in the pit lane and so on. They do follow that, but they want to know about girlfriends, about things they're doing away from the sport and so on. And this is what Drive to Survive has done. It has kind of taken the, if you'll pardon the pun, it's unmasked them or taken the helmet off these drivers. We've gotten to know them away from the racetrack, what their private life is a little bit like, and it's given us a window into the intensity of the sport. You can see them and hear them talking about that more openly now. It's a sport in the past where they haven't always been friendly with their rivals. There's over time been some very, very bitter rivals in the sport, and that still exists, obviously, because you're talking about the very best in the world. But I think the sport has also made some of these competitors come together a little bit more because they're spending 24 events on the road together. They spend a bit more time together, and it's not uncommon toward the end of the year for the drivers to get together and all have a meal and so on.
Yeah, and that mental game was a real big focus of Drive to Survive, which we'll get in a bit later. But turning to Oscar's 2025 season, why has it been getting so much attention?
I think because it's the first time that an Australian has led the World Championship in 15 years. He's pieced together a string of wins as you and I talk here, and that's not something that's happened consecutively in Formula One for an Australian since Alan Jones in the late 1970s. He became the world champion in 1980. We haven't had a world champion in Formula One since him. We have had other drivers there. I mean, obviously, Mark Webber, when I used that statistic before about someone, an Australian leading the points or being top of the ladder for the first time in 15 years, it was Mark Webber, the last person to do that. He went in with a chance of winning the 2010 title. It all came down to the final event in Abu Dhabi where he was battling Fernando Alonso and Sebastian Vettel. It ultimately went the way of his young then Red Bull teammate in Sebastian Vettel. But now Oscar finds himself top of the ladder. As I said at the commencement of this chat, he's working in all the right ways to be in that position. That is not a position of luck. He is with a team that is a very good team and with a good car. But what he is delivering in the car in conjunction with his engineering group and so on is brilliant, and it seems to get better with every outing.
And Oscar's managed by Mark Webber, who you just mentioned there. How influential has Mark been in Oscar's rise?
Incredibly so. He was with Oscar in a reserve driver role with the Alpine team. But with Mark's help, they were able to move to McLaren. It was a strategic masterstroke, I think, between the pair of them at the time. McLaren weren't in great shape at that point, but clearly things were being put in place for them to enjoy the spoils of that now. They moved at the right time. It gave Oscar a chance to build and to learn. And to your question, Mark has been there. He's been in that pressure cooker environment on the grid in Formula One. He's dealt with difficult moments with teammates. That sounding board, that advice, and Oscar can drive, he can deliver, he can win Grand Prix. There's no problem with that, but it's those little things that Mark has experienced along the way. And let's face it, if there has to be a difficult moment, I think as a colleague said to me the other day, Mark can diffuse a bit of that. Oscar can just focus on driving and Mark can deal with the team about the managerial stuff. But having Mark in his corner is a significant part of why he is where he is now. But it's not the only piece of the Piastri puzzle.
F1 is a big mental game, and we see that play out on and off the track. Unlike other teams, McLaren doesn't appear to have a favourite, you could say. How has that been playing out on the track between Oscar and his teammate Lando Norris?
It's hugely difficult to manage. I greatly admire the sentiment, let them race. That's what fans want to see. But as the season goes on, there may be some... I mean, Lando Norris is no slouch. He will fight back from this or endeavour to in that battle with Oscar. And being able to juggle two very competitive personalities so that you don't put yourself in a position where they either take each other out or they damage the chances of winning a driver's or a constructor's championship, which are worth millions and millions of dollars, let alone the prestige around it. So juggling, that's not easy.
You mentioned before Max Verstappen from Red Bull. He's won the last 4 world championships, but McLaren won the Constructors' Championship last year. Are we seeing at all a change of the guard?
Possibly. The one-lap pace of the Red Bull still seems incredibly good. They don't look like they have the car at the moment for the long game, but what Max does, because he's fundamentally superhuman behind the wheel, is he can make a difference. He can drag results out of that car, and almost everyone they put in the second Red Bull car seems to struggle for some reason. They can't set it up, drive it like he does. So the Max effect in that team is still huge. But McLaren, like they did last year with the Constructors' Championship, are continuing to stitch something together, because over the course of the GP, it just seems like they're in, right now, the better tool. And although one of them might be on the back foot at the moment, that's not to say they won't be in a better position in 6 or 7 races' time.
Yeah, and there is so much that goes on behind the scenes that fans don't see. Do you think, we are so early in the season, but dare to dream, do you think that we could have an Aussie champion, and what would that mean for the sport?
Be huge. He's demonstrating all the right things. He would be the one, as I said before, to put a lid on being overconfident, because we have a long way to go in this. But if he can keep doing what he's doing at the moment, there's no reason to think that, A, he doesn't have the mental strength. I think he most certainly does. He's clearly in the right car. One thing about Oscar's story that people perhaps don't realise, and that I think serves him so well now, during the pandemic, he basically left Australia. He completed his schooling in the UK, by and large alone. There were obviously moments there where borders were open and his parents could come and so on. His folks said that, you need to ensure that you get the right results. You've got to tick that school box before we can pursue the motor racing dream and so on. And he really applied himself. And I think that groundwork, that framework, just in life skills sense, has really set him up. He then went and won Formula 3 at the first crack, same Formula 2. I mean, for a rookie to do that is very, very unusual. So all of these things have come together. And what I really like, the school that he attended in Melbourne, the Haileybury School, they now have, I'm led to believe, a scholarship program that I think they've badged the Piastri pathway. So if young kids want to go off and pursue something, I think either academically or sporting, they'll help them with all of that stuff where they're living away from home and providing the support network for them so that they can go and study overseas or pursue that sporting dream in America or follow that kind of difficult path that Oscar did. That path, that's the reason why he's so, in part, why he's so cool, calm and collected, because some of those little life challenges that as a teenager most of us would feel very homesick and struggle with, he absolutely dealt with head first, and that's why I think he seems like he's older than his 24 years.
As you said, at 24 years old, he seems so calm and collected on the track, and F1 has a lot of big personalities. There's a lot of big colour, and there's, we've had the swearing rule kind of introduced recently. How do you think Oscar's calm and collected personality plays out on the track in comparison to other drivers who might seem a bit more brash or a bit more angry?
First of all, I hate the swearing rule. I think they should be allowed to be themselves. You probably at first glance go, look, he's not this gregarious Hollywood type when you first look at him, right? But then when you get to know him and you understand the genuine person that you see on camera at the end of the race is the very same guy that you'll go, and I've been lucky enough to sit and chat with him at the Singapore Grand Prix and at Albert Park and so on, and it's the same person. And I think that filters through on camera. So fans are seeing that and they like that genuine thing about him. What it does though, that cool, calm personality you're talking about is a major asset in the heat of the moment. When you're doing 300 plus kilometres an hour, you're going wheel to wheel with someone like a Max Verstappen, a Sir Lewis Hamilton, you name it. And you can slow all of that down, make the right decisions in a very calm and methodical manner. That is something enormously special. The bulk of us would struggle to, get the car off the line, let alone make decisions like that in the moment. And you can hear him mentally processing what the strategies mean. If they pit now, what the outcome of that is, what the people behind are doing, what the people in front are doing, and so on. That is an incredibly rare skill. And I think, again, Helen, to piece the whole Piastri story together, that will be another big asset that we talk about at the end of the 2025 season.
Yeah, it seems like a big advantage that he has on his side. Rusty, thanks so much for joining us on The Briefing.
Pleasure, and let's hope that we're cracking some champagne at the end of the season for Oscar Piastri.
That was host of LiSNTR's Rusty's Garage, Greg Russ there. And that's it for this episode of The Briefing. We'll be back tomorrow with the weekend briefing. And on tomorrow's ep, Antoinette Lattouf is joined by model and activist Louisa Dunn.
I see the pressure on women. It's not about being judgmental. It's about having a moment of reflection and feeling what is the role that I'm playing and what role can I play? How can I speak about my body in front of my daughter to show her that she should feel less fear about getting older?
And you can follow us on Instagram at The Briefing Podcast. I'm Helen Smith. Catch you next time.